Big day today here. We're gonna hit the Titleist SM9s, a significant improvement upon previous iterations of the Titleist Vokey wedge line. According to Bob Vokey, there's 3 major keys to great wedge play. You've got the versatility to hit different shots, you've got the ability to control trajectory and distance, and you've got the ability to create a ton of spin. They've claimed that they've been able to do this with these new wedges, so let's talk about some of the tech.
So, improvement over SM8. They've been able to maintain that high forward CG that we originally saw in SM8, but they've improved upon it. So also offering 23 different loft grind options in both left and right-handed with all 4 finishes that we've kind of become accustomed to see. Some new designs that we're going to see here are essentially giving us an opportunity to get that lower flight or trajectory while still maintaining a maximum amount of spin. So according to Vokey, that's what best wedge players in the world desire to see, is maintaining that lower, more boring trajectory with wedge shots, hitting the numbers they're trying to hit, and maintaining a maximum spin window to give them the most control possible coming into greens. So let's hit a few shots here and see what we notice with some of these different grind and bounce options that we brought today. Everything is going to be 56, just a couple of different grinds. Perfect. So let's do some testing and capture some numbers. So first wedge I want to start with is going to be SM9 56 degree F grind. It's going to be more of a full sole, and again, like we had kind of highlighted, has that higher, more forward CG, looking to lower that trajectory. And then also something that we haven't talked about yet is new TX9 groove pattern on all of these wedges. First iteration of a whole new groove pattern since SM6. So really excited to see what these grooves do for us.
Absolutely. Right off the jump, that feels really nice. So
good sound too.
Yeah, acoustics are great. Turf interaction is good. Very consistent.
Say launch window we have coming out of these, we set the target right at 110 yards, which was what we were assuming this 56 degree wedge would go for us. I mean, we are right there. Launch angle's been consistently 35, 36 degrees. Carry numbers right there where we were kind of anticipating it to be. Spin numbers, what's the feel off the face? Do you notice anything different between SM8, SM9?
Maybe just a touch of acoustic difference, and that might be because of the CG placement, but you know, I'm not feeling a ton of difference, which is good because I really like the SM8s. I don't know that you need to change something feel-wise if it feels good already.
Sure.
But definitely can hear the acoustics.
So a good sample there with the F grind. So want to transition into same loft. Still going to stay in that SM9 56 degree. Just going to transition into a slightly different option in the S grind.
Perfect. So S is what I currently play. So this will be a nice apples to apples comparison for me to kind of get a feel of how this interacts.
Well, and when it really comes to wedge fitting, we're looking for optimizing that consistency with turf interaction. So understanding where the player plays the majority of his golf, the types of shots they like to hit, and then identifying not only the loft gap to give them the distances that they need to cover, but also identifying the type of grind and bounce combinations that are going to reward that player to be able to hit the shots that they're looking to hit.
Feels like home.
Feels like home, he says. That was nice.
Yeah, felt good. I mean, I'm used to the way that this particular bounce interacts with the turf, so.
Now for the window that you like to see wedges, are you a player that likes to flight it a little lower? Or do you take more of that full swing approach and high trajectory doesn't bother you too much?
You know what, I definitely prefer that more penetrating ball flight with more spin, kind of that hit and check.
Sure.
The high loft tends to create more of an issue for me, landing it pin high and ripping it back, or landing it past the pin and trying to spin it back. It just more characteristics or more variables than I feel like dealing with. So if I can saw one off, take a little less club, choke down and flight it in there, that's always going to be something I'll try and do.
A shaft that we're testing with today, I'm assuming not quite as stable as what you're used to playing with in the gamer.
Right, so the gamers, S400s, it's going to be probably the most popular wedge shaft for a reason. The consistency, the weight, all those things, but this honestly feels very solid. This is just their stock wedge flex.
Just the stock S200 wedge that they send out as the kind of the go-to shaft in the majority of the Vokey clubs. And interestingly enough, as the lofts change, they do change the groove geometry a little bit just to continue maximizing spin throughout the whole loft profile.
Yeah, you know what, I can tell these grooves are tearing the cover off the ball, so they're working.
So turf interaction looks a little better for you with that S grind.
You can see it's a little more shallow, a little more consistent. Definitely makes me feel good about the grind I play. Those felt really good all the way through. So
you were talking, you made a comment about how it was peeling the face off of the ball. So we do run into some issues with some wedges out there where the groove life just doesn't last.
Right.
One thing that I do want to point out with these is they actually heat treat the grooves to improve the longevity of life that you get out of a fresh groove.
yeah, I love that.
We've hit F, we've hit S. Now let's go into one of the newer additions. This is going to be the D grind.
Okay.
So SM9 56 degree hasn't changed.
Okay.
Just moving into D grind. So when it comes to distance and trajectory control, we first saw that raised CG in SM8. So now transitioning into SM9, they've improved that horizontal CG placement, allowing the player to continue to see that lower, more boring trajectory that we like to see, and then also maintaining a little bit more forgiveness in MOI, allowing the player to bring that wedge face back to square a little easier. So just got done testing SM9 56 degree D grind. First time we've hit the D grind. So you say currently game SM8 in the S.
Yep.
So what were your thoughts on the D grind?
I do appreciate a little bit more versatility as someone who likes to work the face a little bit around the greens, but also in those more flighted shots into the green. So being that I have not only a lot of versatility, but bounce, this is a really nice option. I actually really liked how it performed.
Perfect. And with that D grind, they do offer it, I mean, from 54 degrees all the way down into the 60. So you could be a player that likes to have a little bit more heel relief, trailing edge relief, toe relief, manipulate some camber, open the face, and play some of those touch and feel shots. D grind gives us a little bit more bounce, but still removes some of that material and gives us an opportunity to manipulate that wedge when we need to. So really nice. Let's transition into one of the most just classic designs that Vokey's had out there, and that's going to be M grind. So moving into last wedge we have to test, this is going to be basically one of those wedges that has been out there for years. One of the most popular grinds that people play, the M grind. So not unlike we saw in the D, they're going to have more of the material removed from the heel, the trailing edge, the toe. Allows us for an opportunity to really manipulate that wedge. Going to be lower bounce than what we saw in the D.
Okay.
So curious to see your thoughts on this guy.
I just can't get over the sound. The sound is so good.
So they did make a little bit of a change as far as the amount of excess material in that head. A lot of people actually thought that the Vokeys were a forged wedge. They're not, they're cast.
Interesting.
Turf interaction doesn't look too bad with no bounce on it.
Yeah, you're right. This M through a few swings is something I could definitely see myself playing in like a 60 because I do appreciate lower bounce and a little bit more versatility with that 60, but might not be enough bounce. I can just tell if I get a touch steep with this, I'm gonna hit it high in the face. So
sure.
When I'm building out wedges in a set, I like to have some different options from the 50 to the 56 to the 60 so I can kind of accommodate different lies throughout a round of golf. So.
And that's important going through wedge fitting, to give yourself an opportunity at having a little versatility.
Yeah.
So having some different grinds, having some different bounce options so you can play as you travel around to different courses, different turf interaction, different turf conditions. So whether it be something that's packed or something that's a little loose, having a few different grind and bounce options does give you an opportunity to still play one set of wedges no matter where you go.
Yeah, and I'm not someone who likes to tinker a ton, so I do appreciate having not only different grind and bounce options throughout the wedges, but also having wedges that are going to last a lot longer with what they've done this year with the groove pattern. There's your little steep, little high in the face. Yeah, you can see that landed a little bit shorter. Well, you called it. You knew what it was going to do. Get a little steep, high in the face.
A little high on the face, didn't carry quite as far, spin came down, so lost a little stopping power and control coming into the green there.
Isn't that crazy? That's how important the grind option is. We didn't change loft at all.
We didn't change anything.
It's crazy.
So
Shaft
loft is exactly the same, length is the same, everything's the same with the exception of just bounce and grind.
Yep.
So
important.
understanding what grind and bounce best benefits the player depending upon the angles that they create,
Yep.
and also identifying what type of turf that they typically play in, type of shot they like to hit. It's all important when it comes down to wedge fitting.
It's crazy.
And like we touched on earlier, 23 different options, there's an opportunity to really fine-tune that wedge game in SM9.
Absolutely.
So just got done testing 4 different variations of new SM9. So taking a look at some of the numbers here, I mean, we did see an improvement in spin when we transitioned into that D-grind. I know that was the first time that we've hit it.
Yep.
So haven't really had an opportunity to do much testing with D-grind, but difference between what we saw with S-grind, D-grind here, we did see a drop in that apex height, but an increase in spin. So exactly what we were looking for somebody that likes to hit that more flighted, more boring trajectory with a wedge.
Yep. You know, I really like the way that it felt, the turf interaction, the acoustics, but then that added versatility to kind of play the face around the greens, but also those flighted wedge shots into the greens.
Sure.
It definitely checked those boxes. I am someone who appreciates a little bit more bounce, especially on clubs I'm hitting full swings with, so it checks that box. You know, I'm sorry to Steve Stricker. I was a big fan of the S-grind. It was great to me, but it looks like I'm gonna have to consider checking out this D-grind after looking at these numbers.
No, absolutely. And like we kind of anticipated, M-grind for us, just not enough bounce.
Yep.
So turf conditions that we're playing on today and angles that you create as a player just need a little bit more bounce.
Yep.
And 12 degrees in that 56-degree D-grind gave it to us.
Right.
So turf interaction was good, checked the box on spin, lowered that apex height, but maintained a good angle of descent, gave us plenty of control, and consistency on carry, really solid.
Loved it. That was fun.